Hi, I'm Charlie.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Jack.
And we are Charlie, Joe, and Jack, sons of Tommy Greenwald. And this is part 2 of 20 pages a day of Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Not Reading. Eliza is Eliza Collins. Although to be technical about it, she's one of those girls who doesn't really need a last name, like Beyonce. That's because Eliza has been crowned the prettiest girl in the grade. She took over the title in about 4th grade and has held it ever since. You know the type. Looks like a magazine model, popular, and there always seems to be like a swirl of energy and hair brushing and giggling everywhere she stands. People can just be walking by and they get sucked in like she's the center of a tornado or something. I actually made up a song for her a couple of years ago when I first saw her in action. Hurricane Eliza coming in, the hottest hurricane in town. You'll get blown away when Hurricane Eliza is coming down. The tune I came up with is pretty catchy, but you can't hear it because this is a book. Another problem with books, by the way. Rumor has it she's already been offered a job modeling in Spain next year. Not just modeling, mind you, but modeling in Spain. And if just modeling isn't enough, she walks around in school like she owns.
What? Keep going.
You gotta keep going.
Which in a way she does. And she tends to want the things she can't have. A pet cheetah, a driver's license, me. That's right, you heard correctly. Me! But here's what's weird. Even though she's totally hot, and she really is, that long blonde hair is no joke, and even though she thinks I'm totally adorable, I didn't say it, everybody else did, unlike the rest of Western civilization, I don't have a crush on her. I don't know why, I just don't. You know how when you have something, when you can have something so easily you don't necessarily want it? Like when you can only have one bowl of ice cream after dinner, you desperately want more. But if your mom says you can have the whole carton, suddenly you're like, I'm kind of sick of ice cream. Well, that's what it was like with Eliza. She was the whole carton all the time.
So when Katie said Eliza, I was confused. I wasn't sure what any of this had to do with Timmy. As far as I could tell, he hadn't really discovered girls yet. And perhaps more to the point, they hadn't really discovered him. I looked at Katie. I don't get it. Timmy doesn't like Eliza. Katie was still laughing at me. For a pretty smart guy, Charlie Joe, you can be pretty thick sometimes. Was that a compliment or an insult? It's not Eliza that Timmy's worried about, it's her dad. I thought for a second. Mr. Collins? I said, brilliantly. Yep, Katie said. He's the boys' lacrosse coach, right? Katie played lacrosse. She was pretty good, too. I could add for a girl here, but I won't. I shrugged. I think so. Why? She leaned in as if to say, here comes the good part. Apparently Timmy thinks that because Eliza likes you, she'll tell Dad to pick you for the team, and you might make it instead of him. He's totally freaked out about it. I couldn't believe it. It was hard to make the travel lacrosse team. I couldn't believe it. It was hard to make the travel lacrosse team. But Timmy had been practicing for weeks. Meanwhile, I'd barely ever picked up a stick before. I was just going out for the team to hang out with my friends. That's ridiculous, I said. It's true, Katie said back. I'll talk to Eliza about it, I suggested. No, Katie answered immediately. That would be the worst thing to do. Timmy doesn't want anyone to know how insecure he is. Just keep your mouth shut about it. I still wasn't convinced. Where did you hear this? I demanded. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. By now, Katie's friends were calling her to come back, and she started walking back toward them, already texting them. Then she turned back to me with a mischievous look in her eyes. Hey, I have a crazy idea that could solve your whole problem. What's that? I said hopefully. Katie smacked me on the shoulder. Read the book. I thought about what Katie had said and weighed my options. I could just let the whole thing go, read Billy's Bargain, and be done with it. Or I could ignore Katie's advice, talk to Eliza, try to get her to talk to her dad, make sure Timmy made the team, and not have to read Billy's Bargain. Not a difficult decision.
Charlie Joe's tip number 5. If anyone, like, say, a parent, ever yells at you for not reading, just point out to them all the many ways you do read. Websites, instant messages, texts, video game instructions, sports scores, menus, the viewer's guide on the TV, the back of the cereal box, t-shirts, supermarket coupons, and road signs.
Chapter 9. So you know how I called Eliza Collins hot? Well, my parents hate it when I use the word hot to describe girls. They think it's insulting. Degrading, my mom says. Shallow, my dad says. like I think it's the only important thing. I get it. Brains matter too. But let me tell you a little secret. Girls love it when you call them hot. Especially really smart girls, really smart brainiac girls. They love it more than any other kind of girl when you call them hot. But out of respect to my mom and all the other girls out there who don't like the term hot, I will not use the word anymore from here on in. Eliza Collins, non-brainiac, has been called hot, gorgeous, her whole life. So she really knows it, and she acts like it. If our school was the universe and the girls in our school were the solar system, then she'd be the sun and the moon. She's always surrounded by girls, by boys, even by some teachers who, although they would never admit it, they like to be liked by the popular kids. If you wanted to see Eliza, you had to make an appointment. I was slightly different, I guess, because for some reason, like I said, she liked me. But she also hated me because she liked me and I didn't like her. Her inability to snag me was one imperfection, her one blemish, like the annoying cherry on top of an otherwise perfect hot fudge sundae. So, of course, she made me suffer.
The next day at lunch, I told Talia, one of Eliza's assistants, that I needed to talk to Eliza. She looked at me like I had two heads. I'm pretty sure Eliza doesn't want to talk to you, Talia said, barely looking up from her low-fat turkey burger and high-fat large fries. Girls are complicated. This was important. No time for pride. I placed my hand on her shoulder. Tell her it's important. See, the thing about Talia and a lot of girls I've noticed is that they love it when you touch them. I know that sounds gross, but I don't mean it in that way. I just mean show them some gentle affection. Show them what you care about. Show them that you care about them and that you're there for them. Whatever that means. And suddenly, they're your best friend. In particular, I've noticed that girls really love a gentle hand on the shoulder. It's brotherly, but manly. Does that make them shallow, like all they're looking for is affection? I don't think so. I just think it makes them seem more human. It's one of the good human things about girls.
Talia felt my hand on her shoulder, then looked up at me. I could literally feel her shoulders relax as she smiled at me. Then she opened up a little pink book. I think she has an opening tomorrow after math, she said. Chapter 10. Meanwhile, the due date for the assignment was coming up fast, and I was still without an outline from Timmy. I could have read the book, sure, but then my perfect record would have been broken. I'm not gonna lie, I'm proud of my perfect record. All the kids knew about it and were mighty impressed. And let me tell you another thing. I'm no quitter. I was committed to not reading, and it was going to take more than just some dumb lacrosse team misunderstanding for me to throw in the towel. See, it wasn't just that I was lazy. It was that I didn't want to disappoint my fans.
Charlie Joe's tip number 6. Reading won't help you succeed in life. My parents say that if I don't start reading, I'll do badly on all the reading and the writing tests that help you get into a good college. I'll probably end up a failure in life. At least twice a week they say to me, how are you going to get into a good college if you don't read? And if you don't get into a good and if you don't get into a good college, you will end up blank. Anything from homeless to a criminal, that varies with their moods. My first answer to that is relax. I'm only in middle school, people. My second answer is, what if I'm amazing at some weird thing that nobody else is interested in? Won't that help me get into a good college? I briefly considered signing up for mime class, kind of as a goof, but it turned out that there's no one less goofy than a mime boy. Do they take it seriously? Oh, sorry. Less goofy than a mime. Boy, do they take it seriously. You would think they would realize how ridiculous it is, but no. It's too bad that it was such a drag and so embarrassing because it doesn't seem particularly hard. And my guess is that there are very few kids who put master mime on their college applications. Maybe I should take up fencing. It's like sword fighting, but you don't get killed. Fencing has clothes that are really cool. It's all about handling a weapon, for crying out loud. I mean, what could be better than that? And it's just weird enough to look great on all those college applications. What's the downside? Touché.
Chapter 11. And before I begin, this is Abby. This is our dog. She is also quarantining with us in this trying time. Anyway, chapter 11. During math class, the only thing I could think about was my appointment with Eliza and getting her to make sure that Timmy made the travel lacrosse team so that he would be my friend again. Then, as soon as that drama was out of the way, he'd give me the rundown on what was in the middle of Billy's bargain. I could write my paper without reading it, and order would be restored to the universe. I know it's hard to believe, but all this excitement made it very difficult for me to concentrate on the fractional ratios of binary numbers. Don't bother looking up fractional ratios of binary numbers, by the way. I just made it up. Finally, class was over. I went out into the hall, where Eliza was being attended to by a harem of 3 Elizettes. She saw me and shooed away her friends. Why? Charlie Joe Jackson, as I live and breathe. She proceeded to breathily give me a kiss on the cheek to really drive home the live and breathe part. She was kind of dramatic that way. What are you doing, Abby? Hey, lies, I said, pronounced lies. Only those in the circle got to call her that. She swung her hair over to one side. Whenever she did that, activity in the hallway pretty much ground to a halt. It was kind of amazing. I had to admit, like when you see a red Maserati on the street and everyone stops to stare. Now, Charlie, are you here to ask me to the end of the year dance? The end of the year dance is like 4 months away. And for anyone else, that would have been a ridiculous question. But this was Eliza Collins. For all I know, several kids had already asked her already. Isn't it a little early to be thinking about the end of the year dance? I asked. Eliza brushed a single golden strand out of her hair, out of her left eye. Well, I was making sure. Because if you're about to ask me or something, you know you're barking up the wrong hill. She had this way of mangling expressions that for some reason actually made her hotter. I figured that, lies. I'm actually here on behalf of someone else. Her eyes narrowed, not a good sign. I plunged ahead, whispering so the entire hall couldn't hear me. You know Timmy McGivney, right? Duh, of course you knew Timmy McGivney. Anyway, I happen to know for a fact that he's a really good lacrosse player. And if you maybe talk to your dad about making sure he made the travel team, that would be such a huge, totally a huge favor for me. Because I know how much it means to Timmy. And I promise I'll never ask you for another favor as long as I live.
Have you ever noticed that really pretty girls think being pretty is like a license to talk loud, especially when they get irritated? Eliza was irritated because not only was I not asking her out, I was asking her for a favor that she found really, well, boring. Eliza heard my plea and then said loud enough for people in Thailand to hear, "Charlie Joe, that is so sweet that you care about your friend Timmy that much. But I don't know anything about my dad's lacrosse team. And to tell you the truth, I really don't care. So yeah, no." And she swung her hair back to the other side and then walked away. Everyone in the hallway stared as she left me standing there, mission completely unaccomplished. So to recap, A, Eliza said no, B, Timmy probably would never read another book for me again, and C, the entire hallway pretty much thought that I thought that Timmy wasn't good enough to make the lacrosse team on his own. Oops.
Charlie Joe's tip number 7. Reading can ruin friendships. The thing that I've noticed about reading is that it can become a habit, a bad habit, like smoking, or forgetting to put on deodorant, or saying, you know, all the time. Or, yeah, no, to start a sentence. I hate that one. What does that even mean? Take my buddy Jake Katz, who used to take pride in not reading, just like me. Then Jake got this book about snakes, fell in love, and he started reading books about reptiles all the time. Then he started reading about all kinds of things like weather patterns, Civil War battles, science fiction stories, murder mysteries, even a book called Mastering the Art of Slicing Sushi. Like he's ever going to need to know about that. Now, Jake carries books around with him everywhere, no matter where he's going. The minute things are quiet or he has time to kill between activities, he whips one out and starts reading right there and then. I'm not going to lie, it's put a strain on our friendship.
Chapter 12. Later at recess, while I was trying to get over my failure with Eliza, I was cornered by my English teacher, Miss Farrell. "Hi there, Charlie Joe." "Hi, Miss Farrell." I tapped my foot impatiently. Recess was 24 minutes long and every minute was like gold. "Charlie Joe, have you been reading Billy's Bargain? Have you read Billy's Bargain yet? You know the paper is due next week. I expect big things from you on this paper." It was my curse to be one of those students that Miss Farrell thought showed promise. I hate promise. It's just a synonym for high expectations, which are almost impossible to meet. What's so great about great? Pretty good. It's good enough for me. I looked longingly at my buddies who were playing a rare form of basketball that involved whipping the ball at each other's groinal regions. I saw Phil Manning nail Ricky Snyder and I couldn't help but crack up. Charlie Joe, I asked you a question. Miss Farrell leaned in close enough that I could tell that she had fish sticks for lunch. At least we had that in common. I'm pretty much halfway through it. Halfway through the first chapter, that is. She sighed the classic teacher sigh. Fine. I look forward to reading your observations and no more excuses. If your paper's late, it's 10 points off. Rules are rules. I may have forgotten to mention that in addition to being allergic to reading, I also had an occasional problem with punctuality when it came to assignments. Miss Farrell adjusted her glasses, which was a sure sign that she was coming to the heart of the matter. Charlie Joe, someone of your ability has the responsibility to produce a paper worthy of your talents, however hidden they may be. I've talked about this with your mom and dad several times. They're wonderful people, and you really owe it to them to start applying yourself before it's too late. Wow, she played the parents card. That was low. And with that, she walked off to join her fellow teachers, who were technically assigned to watch kids at recess, but who really spent the time flirting with each other. I made it over to my friends just in time for Pete Milano to throw a Spalding indoor-outdoor adult-side basketball and nail me right in my you-know-what. The day was not turning out well.
Charlie Joe's tip number 8. Not all books are bad. Every once in a while, a book can be a good thing. Here are those rare exceptions. Comic books, yearbooks, checkbooks, when your grandparents are writing you a check for your birthday, and Facebook, when your parents aren't looking. And that is another 20 pages of Charlie Joe Jackson in the books.
See you next time.
See you tomorrow.